During family dinner, my sister-in-law stood up, pointed at me, and said, "You're a cheater." Then she turned to my 7-year-old daughter and added, "You're not really ours. Robert isn't your dad." My husband didn't panic. He did this. 5 minutes later, they regretted everything. If motherhood gives you anything, it's radar. Not the fun kind that helps you find lost toys. The animal kind. The something in this room is wrong sense. That feeling hit me the moment my husband, Robert, and I walked into his parents' dining room that night. His mother, Ruth, gave me a tight smile. His father, Gerald, gave me no smile at all. And his younger sister, Jenna, sat there with the look of a cat who had eaten something it shouldn't and couldn't wait to brag about it. Our daughter, Mia, 7 years old and sweet enough to break your heart, slipped into the seat beside me. She swung her legs and hummed under her breath, oblivious to the storm gathering around her. The room was too quiet. Too ready. We made it through salad. Barely. Then Ruth cleared her throat. The kind of throat clear that means someone is about to drop a bomb disguised as family conversation. "Jenna," she said, "you wanted to share something with us?" Share. My stomach dropped. Jenna pushed her chair back and stood up slowly, dramatically, because of course she did. She pointed at me like a prosecutor in a courtroom she built in her head. "You," she announced, voice trembling with excitement, "are a cheater." I blinked. I honestly thought maybe she meant at board games, or that weird family diet challenge I keep refusing to join. But no, she meant actual cheating. Before I could process that level of delusion, Jenna turned to my daughter, to Mia, and said, "You're not really ours. Robert isn't your dad." The world dropped out from under us. Mia froze. Her little face drained of color. She looked at Robert, then at me, then back at Robert. "Daddy?" she whispered, barely audible. What does she mean?" My heart cracked so violently I swear I heard it. And then, because apparently cruelty is a group sport, Gerald added, flat and cold, "Sweetie, we're not really your grandparents." I felt Mia flinch like she'd been slapped. I reached for her immediately, pulled her out of her chair, held her against my chest. I didn't shout, didn't argue, didn't give them a show. I stood up, took her hand, and walked her toward the hallway. Behind me, I heard Jenna drop something on the table with a triumphant smack. As we turned, my eyes caught a glimpse of an envelope on the table. Thick, official-looking, the kind that comes from clinics or labs. I didn't stop or touch it, but I saw the way Robert's expression tightened when he looked at it, like he already knew exactly what it was and exactly what it meant. I kept walking, but my ears strained for Robert's voice. Inside the dining room, the shouting started. "Ruth, we did you a favor." Jenna, "It's a paternity test. Open it." Gerald, "Go on, see for yourself. She played you for a fool." Mia trembled in my arms, and then Robert's voice, calm, controlled, dangerously steady. "This," he said, "is the last time we will ever visit you." Silence. Sharp, shocked silence. Ruth sputtered, "What? What do you mean? You should be angry at her, not us." Jenna screeched, "We told you the truth." Robert didn't raise his voice, but every word hit like steel. "I can't believe you did a DNA test behind my back." A beat. "I can't believe you said this in front of a child." Another beat. "You're right about one thing." I held my breath. "You're not her grandparents anymore." Someone gasped. "And I'm not your son anymore." Chairs scraped. Someone cursed. Someone tried to talk over him. And then Robert said the line that turned the whole night inside out. "Yes, I know she isn't biologically mine." The room went dead still. "I have always known." I closed my eyes, holding Mia tighter. And my wife never cheated on me. More silence. Stunned, choking silence. The kind his family had never experienced in their lives. Then Robert's footsteps approached, slow and heavy. He appeared in the hallway, eyes on our daughter first, then on me. "Let's go," he said quietly. We left without another word. No dramatic exit. No anger. Just a clean, permanent cut. As we walked into the cold night air, Mia clinging to me, Robert's hand on my back, I felt the ground shift under us. Like the universe had finally snapped a tension wire that had been tightening for years. What happened that night didn't start at that dinner table. Not even close. To understand how we got here, you have to know what happened long before this night. If you'd told me years ago that my in-laws would someday accuse me of cheating using a secret DNA test, I wouldn't have laughed. I would have sighed and said, "Yeah, that tracks." Because the truth is, nothing with Robert's family ever happened suddenly. The red flags didn't explode. They whispered, slowly, persistently. Until one day, you realize you've spent years pretending things were normal when they were anything but. When I first met Robert, he was 21, sweet in a quiet way, and had that earnest, slightly overwhelmed look of someone who tried very hard to be good at everything. I fell for him embarrassingly fast. Meeting his family felt like sitting at a table where everyone else had already chosen sides. His mother, Ruth, gave interrogation-level small talk. His father, Gerald, did the thing where every sentence started with, "Well, actually." And his younger sister, Jenna, was around 10 at the time, but already fluent in superiority. The very first dinner, Ruth leaned in and asked, "So, what exactly are your intentions with our Robert?" Our Robert. Like he was a family heirloom I was sneaking out of the display cabinet. She didn't stop there. She kept weaving in subtle jabs like a mosquito invisibly dive-bombing. "Oh, Robert is such a generous boy. I'm sure he paid for your meal. Girls your age can be expensive." Mind you, I had bought the groceries for that dinner, but when people are looking for a villain, they'll script the story themselves. Jenna, even as a middle schooler, took notes like an intern training for hostility. "Why do you let him buy you things?" she'd ask. "He bought me a $2 plastic keychain," I said once. "That adds up," she said, dead serious. Meanwhile, the actual financial foundation of the family was Robert. He'd put himself through community college with no help from Ruth and Gerald, then went straight into working full-time. And from the moment he got his first paycheck, his parents treated his income like it was part of their monthly budget. He called it helping. I called it mandatory tithing to the church of emotional guilt. Still, we got married. We were happy. We built our own routines, our own little world, and the bi-weekly dinners with his parents became something I tolerated the way you tolerate dentist cleanings. Necessary, mildly painful, survivable. Then we started trying for a baby. Trying turned into tracking. Tracking turned into timing. Timing turned into 2 years of nothing. And then came the doctor's office. The too quiet room, the pause before the results, the soft voice delivering a hard truth. Robert would never have biological children. Not low chance. Not maybe someday. 0. My husband held my hand, squeezed once, and whispered, "Okay." And he meant it. But that okay lived in the back of my ribs for months. We talked. For hours. Days. Weeks. It came down to 3 choices. Stay child-free. Adopt. Use a sperm donor. In the end, we chose the donor. Not because it was easy, nothing about it was, but because it gave us the chance to build the family we wanted without waiting years in an adoption system held together with paperwork and prayers. So we made the decision. Quietly. Privately. Then we made another. We wouldn't tell Robert's family, not because we were ashamed, but because we knew they would use it like ammunition, weaponize it, whisper about it, turn it into a hierarchy of real versus not real. And the idea of Ruth or Gerald looking at our child and seeing something less than was unbearable. Then our daughter Mia was born. And oh, she was perfect. She looked like me, a lot like me, which made sense, of course, but even then, Ruth couldn't help herself. She doesn't have any of Robert's features, she'd say, squinting. Funny that. Gerald once asked, half joking. Sure she's yours, Robbie. It took every molecule of self-control in Robert's body to stay calm, but the worst was Jenna, because she was old enough to know better and still chose cruelty. You guys spoil her, she'd say. Meanwhile, we bought her a bubble wand for $3. But in Jenna's mind, any dollar spent on Mia was a dollar stolen from her Royal College fund. And speaking of that, when Jenna graduated high school, she announced she was attending an expensive private university, not community college, not something modest, a school with a tuition bill that looked like a surgical procedure. Guess who she expected to pay? Not her parents. Nope. Robert. And he did. For 2 years, 2 full years, he paid her tuition. Not her housing, not her meals. She had to work part-time. But the tuition itself was massive. A generous, back-breaking gift. And what did Jenna say every time she visited? You're spending too much on your wife. You take too many vacations with Mia. If you didn't spoil your own family so much, maybe you could help your real family. Real family. Funny word now. Looking back, all the signs were there. All the resentment, all the entitlement, all the jealousy, and all the pressure to make sure their golden daughter got everything she wanted, even at the expense of ours. But nothing prepared me for the night when all those years of quiet poison finally erupted. And my 7-year-old learned the truth in the most brutal way possible. And that truth? That wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. If silence had a temperature, the drive home that night could have flash-frozen a lake. Mia sat in the back seat, small and rigid, staring out the window like she was afraid the darkness might stare back. Robert gripped the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles white. I kept glancing at her through the mirror, waiting for a question, a tear, a breath. Anything. Nothing. Just a little girl holding her whole world together with 2 trembling hands. When we got home, she walked inside like she was sleepwalking. She didn't run to her toys, didn't take off her shoes, didn't ask for a snack. She just stood in the hallway, waiting for someone to tell her what reality was now. Robert and I exchanged a look, the kind that says, okay, this is where we stop being shocked and start being parents. We sat with her on the couch. I took her hand. Robert took the other. Mia, I said softly, remember how we've told you that we wanted you for a very long time? She nodded. Well, Robert said gently, when Mommy and I were trying to have a baby, the doctors told us my body couldn't make babies the regular way, so they helped us. Mia blinked, watching him like she was trying to understand a foreign language spoken underwater. You grew in Mommy's tummy, he continued. You were always wanted. You were always loved. And you are my daughter. Now and always. And Mommy never cheated, I added, because that poison needed to be neutralized immediately. Daddy has always known how you were made. He never had a second of doubt. She didn't cry. She didn't ask anything. She just nodded once, quietly slipped off the couch, and walked toward her room. The door clicked shut behind her. Robert rubbed his face. I don't know if that was acceptance or emotional shutdown. Both, I said. Welcome to childhood trauma speedruns. We gave her space. She needed it. We also needed a moment to breathe because the chaos wasn't over. It was just getting started. Robert walked into the office and sat down at his computer, his face set in a way that left no room for negotiation. Calm, steady, done. He opened the banking app. First click, cancel recurring transfer to Ruth and Gerald. Second click, cancel Jenna's tuition payment. Third click, shut down the extra debit card Jenna had been using. Tara, he called from the office. I'm cutting off everything. All of it. I walked to the doorway. Good. He let out a short, shaky laugh. Feels weirdly healthy. Well, I said, I'd bake you a congratulatory cake, but after tonight, I'm not sure either of us can emotionally handle cake. He leaned back in the chair, exhaling. Honestly, this feels like the first decision I've made about them that actually makes sense. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Mia came out of her room holding a stuffed animal and asked if she could watch cartoons. No meltdown, no follow-up questions, just gentleness, fragility. I kept her close all day. Around noon, Robert's phone started ringing. Ruth and Gerald. He stared at the screen like it was something radioactive. Tara, he said flatly. They know about the tuition. He answered. The screaming started instantly. How could you do this? Your sister needs this. You're ruining her future. We can't afford this without you. It's 2 days before the deadline. Robert held the phone an inch from his ear, expression blank. I'm not paying anymore, he said calmly. Robert, be reasonable, Gerald barked. She can't study without your support. She's 20, he replied. She can take a loan, get a job, be an adult. Ruth practically shrieked. You can't abandon family. You abandoned mine last night, he said. There was silence. Sharp, ugly, sizzling. Then the guilt-tripping began. You're choosing her over us. You're brainwashed. You owe us. Your sister is counting on you. Robert hung up. Just hung up. No dramatic speech, no yelling, just a click. I walked over and kissed his cheek. I'm proud of you. He looked startled. I've never done that before, he admitted. Hung up on them. Feels good though, right? He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it since childhood. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Mia peeked around the corner. Daddy? Are Grandma and Grandpa mad? Robert crouched down to her level. They're upset because they did something wrong, he said. Not because of you. She nodded and went to her room without a word. Robert exhaled, leaning a shoulder against the wall like all the weight he'd been carrying finally slid into one place. We didn't even get 20 minutes before someone hammered at the door. Not frantic, not polite, just the kind of knock that says, we're coming in one way or another. Robert's head lifted. I'll get it, I said, already halfway there. I opened the door just a crack. Ruth and Gerald, faces tight, breathing hard. That self-righteous anger older people get when they feel they've been disrespected. Let us in, Ruth said. Not a question. I stepped aside so the neighbors wouldn't have a front row seat. They walked in like the house belonged to them. Robert came into the hallway. His expression didn't change, but his whole posture did. What are you doing here? He asked. Gerald answered with, You hung up on us. Robert didn't deny it. Yes. Ruth's eyebrows shot up. That's how you speak to your parents now? That's how I speak to anyone who crosses a line, he said. Ruth folded her arms. We want an explanation. Immediately. Robert nodded once. Fine. I canceled the tuition payments. I'm not paying anymore. Gerald blinked. You what? You heard me. You can't do that, Ruth snapped. She needs that money. She's 20, Robert said. Plenty of adults figure it out. That's easy for you to say, Gerald said. You already had help when you were young. From who? Robert asked. Because it wasn't either of you. Ruth inhaled sharply. Don't be dramatic. We supported you in our own ways. You criticized Tara every chance you got, Robert said. You treated her like she was stealing from me when she was paying half our bills. You treated Mia like a guest. And now this. Ruth's lips thinned. Jenna made a mistake. I stepped closer. She told my daughter she wasn't family. She didn't mean it, Ruth insisted. She spoke without thinking. And you backed her, Robert said. Gerald shook his head. You're overreacting. You're letting emotions cloud your judgment. Emotions? Robert echoed. My daughter cried herself to sleep because of what you said. Ruth stiffened. We didn't say anything cruel. We simply told the truth. You told a 7-year-old that she wasn't really part of her family, I said. You think that's not cruel? Gerald took a step forward. Well, maybe if you hadn't lied about... Stop. Robert's voice turned low. Say what you want to say. Gerald swallowed, then said it plainly. You should have told us. Ruth added, We had a right to know that she isn't our granddaughter. Biologically. My breath stuck in my throat. That was the sentence that cracked the house open. Because behind us, at the edge of the hallway, a small voice whispered, Daddy? Mia stood there, bare feet, wet hair, face pale. Her eyes flicked between all of us. They said, I'm not their granddaughter. Her voice broke on the last word. I didn't even think. I went to her, lifting her before her knees gave out. She clung to my shirt and started to cry, quiet, shuddering sobs that made her whole body shake. Ruth took a step toward her. Sweetheart, you misunderstood. We didn't mean... Don't, Robert said. His tone was level, not raised, but final. He walked toward us, putting a protective hand on Mia's back while she shook against me. Then he turned to his parents. You need to leave. Ruth blinked. Robert, listen. I'm done listening. Gerald's voice tightened. We came here to fix this. No, Robert said. You came here to justify yourselves. Ruth frowned. This is not how a son speaks to his parents. Robert didn't move. This is how a father protects his child. The sentence hung in the air like a closing door. Ruth's eyes flashed with insult. You would throw away your own family over a misunderstanding? You are the ones who threw us away, Robert said. The moment you made Mia believe she didn't belong. Gerald shook his head, stunned that he was losing control of the narrative. If we walk out that door, you won't be coming back, Robert finished. He opened the front door, holding it with steady hands. Please go. Ruth stared at him for a long few seconds, disbelief written across her face. But Robert didn't look away. Eventually, she stepped past him. Gerald followed. They walked to the car without another word. Robert shut the door, locked it, checked it twice. When he turned around, the anger in him was gone, replaced with something quieter and far heavier. He took Mia gently from my arms and held her against him, her small fists still gripping his shirt. It's okay, he whispered. You're okay. She cried until her breath slowed, until the tension melted out of her little body, until the only sound in the house was her soft sniffing. Robert didn't let go. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Some choices explained themselves. Later, after she finally fell asleep, we stood in the doorway watching her breathe. Robert took my hand. This isn't the end of it, he murmured. You know that. I nodded. It wasn't. The week that followed was quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, just normal in a way we hadn't felt in years. Mia didn't ask about Ruth or Gerald again. She didn't bring up what she overheard. She didn't cry at bedtime. She just slowly returned to herself. One night while we made dinner, she asked very seriously, "Do we still have to go to Grandma Ruth's Sunday lunches?" Robert froze with the spatula midair. I held my breath. Then she added, "Because I don't want to pretend to like her meatloaf anymore. It tastes like old socks." I choked on my drink. Robert actually laughed. A small, tired laugh, but real. "No," he told her. "No more Sunday lunches." "Good," she said, already moving on. "Can we have tacos instead?" Just like that, a weight shifted. In the evenings, she colored at the dining table while Robert caught up on work, and I finished my own tasks. Sometimes she'd wander over, lean against him, and ask what he was typing with that tiny, suspicious frown kids get. Sometimes she'd crawl into my lap and show me drawings of our little family, just the three of us, standing under a crooked sun. She didn't draw Ruth and Gerald in any of them, and I didn't ask why. A quiet week passed. Not peaceful, just steady, like we were all learning to breathe again. Then, on Saturday morning, just as Robert and I were getting Mia's shoes on for a library trip, there was a knock at the door, not loud, not aggressive, just a soft, hesitant knock. Robert and I looked at each other. We both knew exactly who it was before we even opened the door. Jenna, standing alone on the porch, holding a small box wrapped in bakery twine. Her eyes were red, her shoulders round, and for the first time in her life, she looked unsure of her place in the world. "Tara," she said, voice thin, "can I talk to you both?" Robert stepped beside me. His jaw tightened automatically. He was polite, but only in the way you're polite to a stranger holding a suspicious package. Jenna swallowed hard. "I came to apologize." She held out the cake like an offering to the gods. Her hands were shaking. "I really didn't know," she said. "If I had known the truth, I would never have said those things, and not in front of Mia. That was horrible. I'm so sorry." Her voice cracked on sorry, and for a moment I saw the frightened teenager underneath all the entitlement. Robert nodded once. Nothing warm, nothing soft. Just acknowledgement. "We accept your apology," he said. Jenna looked relieved, then panicked, then relieved again. She glanced behind us. "Is Mia here? I want to say it to her too." "No," I said. "And she doesn't need any more confusion right now." Jenna nodded quickly. "Right. Of course, that makes sense." A long silence stretched out. The kind people fill with fake small talk. But Jenna didn't reach for small talk. She reached for the real reason she came. "I also wanted to ask," she began, eyes darting everywhere except at us, "if you could still pay my tuition." There it was. Robert didn't react. Not even a blink. Jenna kept going, words spilling out like she was trying to outrun her own desperation. "I can't afford it. Not even close. And if I don't pay, they'll drop me from the semester. I don't know what to do." She took a shaky breath. "Could you maybe just loan it to me? I swear I'll pay it back when I graduate, or when I get a job, or—" "No," Robert said. The word landed like a hammer. Jenna blinked, stunned. "No?" "No," he repeated. "I'm not paying anymore." She swallowed hard. "Okay, I get it. After everything that happened, it's complicated. But maybe just this semester? Just to get me through the transition." "No!" Her face twisted. "Please," she whispered. "I can't drop out. You don't understand. No one else can help me." I understand perfectly, Robert said. You're an adult. Adults figure things out. She looked like she'd been slapped. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said quietly. I didn't know. That's the problem, Robert cut in. You didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't care how it would affect a 7-year-old hearing those words. Jenna's mouth trembled. Tears burned at the edges of her eyes. I said I was sorry, she whispered. And we accepted your apology, I said. But an apology isn't a coupon. She winced. I can't believe you'd let me fail, she said softly. After everything. After everything, Robert repeated. After everything I paid? After the years of helping? After everything my daughter went through? Yes. After everything. Another tear slipped down her cheek. Is there anything I can do? She whispered. No, Robert said. Her shoulders collapsed inward. She looked, for the first time in her life, small. Really small. She turned to leave. Hand on the doorknob, she paused and said almost inaudibly, I never thought you'd choose her over us. Robert stared at her like she'd spoken Martian. She's my daughter, he said. There was never a choice. Jenna nodded once, sharp, defeated, and walked into the cold. Robert closed the door, locked it, then leaned against it, letting out a long, exhausted breath. I walked over and pressed my forehead against his. We did the right thing, I said. He nodded, eyes closed. I know. I just didn't expect it to feel like this. Like what? Like I finally grew up. 6 months later, life is simple in a way it hasn't been in years. We've stayed no contact. No more shouting matches, no guilt trips, no sudden demands for money. Just calm. Robert's paycheck stays with us now. Every dollar. And Mia? She's happier than I've ever seen her. Light, confident, completely unbothered by the people who once made her feel small. Meanwhile, word gets around. Ruth and Gerald had to take out emergency loans after Jenna missed the chance to apply for student loans. Then another loan when that wasn't enough. They even refinanced their house to cover her tuition. Now they're buried in debt, and Jenna is exhausted working extra hours just to keep up. The same people who treated us like we owed them the world, they're the ones sinking. And us? We're finally free. So what do you think? Did Robert go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. During the will announcement, my in-laws handed every grandchild an envelope, except my 8-year-old. We've decided you don't count as family, my mother-in-law said in front of everyone. My daughter froze. We didn't shout. We acted. 3 days later, their lawyer called and they went pale. The room had been too quiet even before the envelopes came out. Not respectful quiet. Not ceremonial quiet. Tense quiet. Hostile quiet. The kind of quiet where everyone knows something ugly is about to happen, except the one person it's going to hit hardest. Paula, my daughter, my 8-year-old who still believes grown-ups mean what they say, bounced in her chair, excited, completely unaware that her place in this family was about to be publicly erased. My husband, Adam, sat beside her, watching his parents with the same wary calm he always had around them. Like someone handling unstable chemicals and praying today wouldn't be the day something exploded. His mother, Susan, stood at the head of the long dining table, hands folded. His father, Norman, sat stiffly beside her, wearing his usual expression of, I'm judging everyone here, and also the furniture. Adam's sister, Sabrina, perched on a chair like she was waiting for her spotlight. His older brother, Sean, was pretending not to be uncomfortable. Even Tina, Adam's ex, was here, with their teenage son Owen slouched beside her, visibly bored. And then there was Paula, my sweet, hopeful little girl, practically glowing. Because to her, this wasn't a family legacy ceremony or a will announcement. It was a day where she got to be with cousins, hear nice things, and feel included. She'd even worn her favorite yellow dress. Because yellow is happy, Mommy. I wished I could have wrapped her in armor. Susan cleared her throat. Now that everyone's here, she said, smiling the kind of smile that never reached her eyes, we'd like to begin. A small stack of envelopes sat in front of her. 2 types. Large cream envelopes for the adults. Colorful decorated envelopes for the kids. The children were supposed to open theirs out loud, the cute kid version, filled with sentimental notes, old photos, and "we love you so much" messages. The adults were told to read theirs privately at home. It was all very performative. Very Susan. The first child was called forward. She opened her little envelope, giggled, read out a message about how she was Grandma's sunshine and Grandpa's pride, and everyone clapped politely. Then the next child, and the next, and the next. Every kid had their moment, except mine. Paula sat up straighter every time Susan reached for another envelope. Her smile got wider. She kept brushing her dress flat, making sure she was ready. And then Susan skipped her, right over her, like Paula wasn't even sitting there. She handed an envelope to the next cousin, and the next. My daughter's smile wavered, but she stayed hopeful. Because she is 8, and 8-year-olds believe in fairness the way they believe in gravity. Eventually, every cousin had opened their envelope. Every child had heard their loving message. And Paula sat with empty hands. Finally, Susan turned to her. Soft voice. Soft smile. The kind of softness people use right before pulling the rug out from under you. "Oh, honey," she cooed. "I know you've been waiting." Paula beamed. For a heartbeat. Then Susan added, still in that syrupy tone, "We've talked about this a lot, and we hope you understand. But we've decided you don't count as family." The words dropped like a guillotine. Paula stopped breathing. Her hands curled into her dress. She stared at Susan like she'd been slapped, but wasn't sure why. My chest burned. My brain went silent. Norman nodded stiffly, as if Susan had just delivered a weather report. Sabrina shifted uncomfortably. Sean looked down at his shoes. Tina sucked in a breath. Even Owen muttered, "What the hell?" But nobody said anything to stop it. Nobody. Paula finally whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" That sound, that tiny shaking sound, will haunt me forever. Adam straightened slowly. He didn't yell, didn't ask why, didn't even blink. He just said quietly, "Where's her envelope?" Susan brightened, as if she'd been waiting for that line. "Oh, Adam, you still get yours," she said, picking up a cream-colored envelope and holding it out like it was a prize. "Your family." My stomach flipped. He didn't take it right away. "Just me?" he asked. "Not Paula?" A long, awful beat. Susan sighed, trying to soften the blow. "Well, she's lovely, dear. Truly. But it's different. We're sure you understand." He didn't. He really didn't. But he reached out, slowly, and took the envelope. Paula watched his hand like it was deciding her fate. Adam stared at the envelope, then at her. He didn't open it, didn't even look tempted. Instead, he walked back to the table and set the envelope down, flat, deliberate, final. Then he turned to Susan and Norman and said, voice steady enough to shake the walls, "If my daughter isn't your family, then neither am I." A ripple went through the room. Susan gasped. Norman scoffed. Sabrina froze. Sean whispered, "Holy crap." Tina's eyebrows shot up. Owen looked impressed for the first time in his life. Adam reached for Paula's hand. "Let's go," he said. I stood, took her other hand, and the three of us walked out. No yelling, no theatrics, just a clean, brutal exit. If you told me years ago that I'd one day sit through a will ceremony where my daughter would be publicly erased, I'd probably laugh the kind of laugh that means I'm in danger. Because nothing with Adam's family was ever normal, not dramatic, not explosive, just off. Off enough that when the disaster finally came, I could trace the cracks all the way back to the day I met him. Adam was 25 when we met. Kind, quiet, handsome in that unpolished way where you can still see the boy he used to be. And unlike every man I had dated before, he didn't collect red flags like trading cards. He collected soft smiles, long silences, and genuine effort. There was one complication, though. He already had a son. Owen was 6 when I met him. Wide eyes, endless questions, and a habit of telling strangers highly personal facts about his father. "My dad cries at Pixar movies," was the first thing he said to me. Owen's mother, Tina, had been a teenage girlfriend. One of those, we were kids who thought we were adults stories. They co-parented without drama, and honestly, I admired it. I came into their lives slowly, carefully, respectfully. And before I knew it, I loved Owen too. 2 days a week love at first, then family love. The kind that sneaks up on you until you can't remember life before it. That's around when Adam and I started trying for a baby. Trying became tracking. Tracking became timing. Timing became an emotional marathon I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Month after month, nothing. And the pressure wasn't just biology, it was his family. Adam came from a big one. Parents, siblings, cousins, the whole clan. And they were loud, opinionated, and competitive about everything. They treated family life like a performance. Babies? Perform. Weddings? Perform. Holiday dinners? Full Broadway production. And under every scene, the same whispered reminder. This family has history. Legacy. Old money roots. Not Bentley rich, just the kind of rich where everyone is sure there's a big inheritance somewhere upstream. Some trust no one really understands, but everyone assumes will eventually trickle down. Not to Adam, not yet. Just rumors. Heavy. Entitled. Poisonous. Then one day, after 2 years of infertility and heartbreak, I sat in a doctor's office with the kind of dread that eats through bone. The doctor was gentle. The news wasn't. My body wasn't going to cooperate. Not without medical miracles. Not without grief. Adam held my hand, squeezed once, and whispered, "Okay." But that kind of okay stretches thin. It pressed on both of us, especially him, because he'd already lived the parenting beginnings with someone else, and he wanted to experience everything with me too. We talked about adoption. Actually, we didn't just talk. We circled it, analyzed it, held it up to the light, and examined all the ways it could save us or break us. What finally tipped us? His grandmother. Adam's grandmother had been adopted, and everyone in the family said she was the heart of the bloodline, even though she shared none of their DNA. She'd built the family's values, wealth, reputation. She was the source of those old money whispers. She once said, according to Adam's mom, "If you raise a child, they're yours. Full stop." That line became our North Star, so we began the adoption process. If infertility is a marathon, adoption is a labyrinth. Paperwork, interviews, more paperwork, waiting, hoping, more waiting. And then we met her, Paula, 3 years old, soft curls, wide eyes, a laugh so bright it could cut through winter. We fell in love on sight. We brought her home. She called us mommy and daddy within weeks, and she became Owen's little shadow, following him everywhere like a devoted sidekick. But family, real family, comes with shadows too. At first, Adam's parents fawned over her the way people do over any cute toddler. But as she got older, the warmth cooled into something tight and polite. After visits to their house, Paula clung to us and asked if she was really part of the family. Adam kept saying they just needed time. They'd already had years. That's why, when the invitation arrived for the family will announcement, Paula lit up like Christmas morning. She thought it meant belonging, recognition, confirmation. She couldn't remember life before us, but she knew what it felt like to be the odd one out. She was 8, old enough to see patterns, young enough to still hope. And that was the part that got me. The way her whole face lit up when we told her Adam's parents were hosting a family gathering. She thought it meant games, pictures, maybe even a chance to feel like all the cousins finally saw her the same way she saw them. I didn't correct her. I didn't warn her. I just prayed I wasn't walking her straight into something I wouldn't be able to undo. I was wrong. If silence had a flavor, that drive home tasted like metal. Paula sat in the back seat, seatbelt tight across her tiny chest, staring straight ahead. Not crying, not speaking, just holding herself together the way only an 8-year-old who's been humiliated in public can. Adam kept both hands on the wheel, white-knuckled, jaw locked, breathing like someone trying not to punch the airbag. I kept twisting around to check on her, but she didn't look at me. Not once. When we stepped inside our house, Paula stopped just past the doorway and stood there, small and stiff, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to move anymore. My heart cracked all over again. "Sweetie," I said gently, "come sit with us." We settled on the couch, Adam on one side, me on the other. Paula folded between us like she didn't want to take up space. After a long moment, she whispered, Did you lose money because of me?" That one hit me so hard I actually flinched. Adam blinked like he'd been slapped. "What?" he said softly. "Where did you get that idea?" "You left your envelope," she murmured. "Everyone got something. And I didn't. So maybe you lost yours too. Because of me." The way she said "because of me," I swear something ancient and primal woke up in me. Adam leaned down until he was eye level with her. "Paula," he said, voice steady, "listen carefully. I didn't lose anything because of you. I chose to walk away, because I'm your father, because you're my family. If they don't see that, then I don't want anything from them. Not a cent, not a scrap." Paula's chin wobbled. Her eyes flooded. She didn't cry. She just crawled into his arms, wrapped herself around him, and held on like he was the only solid thing left in the universe. And Adam held her the same way. After she finally went to her room, we stood outside her door for a minute, both of us listening to her soft, exhausted breathing. Adam exhaled shakily. "I keep thinking about what I just gave up," he said quietly. "I'm not sure I even understand the size of it." "No," I cut in. "You didn't walk away from money. You walked away from people who told our daughter she wasn't family. That's not security. That's poison." He nodded once, slowly, the worry still sitting in his shoulders. We went to the living room, sat on opposite ends of the couch the way people do when they're too wired to relax but too drained to stand. Then Adam said the sentence that changed everything. "Actually, I don't even know if they can exclude her." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "Their whole inheritance isn't technically theirs," he said. "A lot of it is from my grandmother's trust. She set it up years ago. Multi-generational. Structured. She was adopted, remember? She would have never made a distinction between biological or adopted grandchildren, and trusts aren't like normal inheritance. There are rules. My pulse kicked up. Do you have the documents? I asked. He shook his head. No, they kept everything. I've never seen the trust paperwork. Then we need a lawyer, I said. ASAP. The next morning, we sat across from Ms. Daly, a calm, steel-spined attorney with the kind of expression that suggested she'd seen 3 divorces, 2 fraud cases, and several midlife crises before her first coffee. When Adam explained what happened, she didn't blink. You're a beneficiary, she said. Legally, you're entitled to full documentation of the trust. They can't hide it from you. So we can get the papers? I asked. We can demand the papers, she corrected. She drafted the request, notarized it, and sent it that same afternoon, and that's when the storm hit. By the next morning, the letter had been delivered, and less than an hour after that, Adam's phone rang. His parents' number lit up the screen like a warning flare. He answered on speaker. Norman's voice exploded through the phone. How dare you send a lawyer after us? You humiliated us in front of everyone, Susan shrieked. And now you want the money? After walking out? Adam didn't raise his voice. He didn't apologize. He didn't justify. He simply said, I want what my grandmother intended. Nothing more. Nothing less. You don't deserve it, Susan snapped. Not after abandoning your family for that girl. Adam hung up. Just hung up. No speech. No anger. Just a clean, lethal click. 3 days later, Ms. Daly called. They sent over the trust packet, she said. You'll want to see this in person. We didn't talk much on the drive. There wasn't anything to say. Every nerve in my body felt like a lit fuse. Ms. Daly's office was quiet. The expensive, soundproof kind of quiet. She closed the door behind us, sat, and pulled a thick binder onto the desk. Plastic sleeves, aged paper, wax seals, signatures from people long gone. Here, she said, flipping to a tab marked in fading ink. We leaned in. There it was. Grandchildren shall each receive equal shares. Not biological grandchildren, not bloodline grandchildren, just grandchildren. Adam exhaled like someone had been sitting on his lungs. So, Paula, counts, he murmured. Ms. Daly nodded. Legally, yes. She turned another page, scanning, her eyebrows pinched. Hold on, she said softly. There's a notation here. She slid the binder toward us and tapped a line handwritten in the margin. Older ink, familiar handwriting. For avoidance of doubt, grandchildren includes all legally adopted descendants. A chill crawled up my spine. That's, Adam whispered, my grandmother's handwriting. Ms. Daly nodded again. She was very explicit, which makes what they did curious. Curious. That word carried weight. Too much weight. I asked, is that enough to file? In theory, yes, she said. But I want to examine the rest before we act. This trust is large, complex, and she stopped. Her finger hovered over a different section. Then she looked up at Adam, slowly. Adam, did your parents ever transfer any trust distributions to you? At any age? He blinked. No. Why? She tapped the page again. Because according to this, you were supposed to receive a distribution at 18, and another at 25. My pulse spiked. And I'm guessing, she continued gently, you never saw a cent. He shook his head. Once. Stunned. Ms. Daly shut the binder carefully. Not dramatically. Carefully. Like someone closing a file labeled danger. There may be more here, she said. A lot more. I need to run a deeper analysis before I tell you anything certain. A cold ripple went down my arms. "What does more mean?" I asked. "It means," she said, folding her hands, "that what happened to Paula may only be the tip of the iceberg." The office felt smaller, tighter. Adam swallowed. "So, what do we do now?" Ms. Daly pushed a short form across the desk. "For now, you authorize me to request the full accounting, quietly, formally, before they realize what we've found." I looked at Adam. He looked at me. There was fear in his eyes, yes, but something else too. Resolve. Fatherhood. A different kind of inheritance. "Do it," I said. We signed. Ink on paper. Fast, final, irreversible. Ms. Daly gathered the binder. "I'll be in touch as soon as I have the full picture." She paused. "And Nadine?" "Yes?" "Prepare yourselves. Whatever's under this surface. People don't hide things unless the truth is worse." We stepped out into the hallway, the door clicking shut behind us. Adam exhaled shakily. "That didn't sound good." "It wasn't meant to," I said. We walked toward the elevator, the fluorescent lights humming above us. I could feel it. Something shifting under our feet. Something big. Bigger than Paula's envelope. Bigger than the insult. Bigger than anything that had already blown up. Whatever was coming. We hadn't even seen the first crack. Days went by without a word from them. Paula colored at the table but jumped at every car outside. Adam and I flinched at every buzz on our phones. By the third evening, he muttered, "They're coordinating. I know that silence." He was right. The knock came the next morning. Not loud, not frantic, just firm, like someone tapping with the certainty of we belong inside. Adam opened the door. Susan and Norman stood there wearing their fake church potluck smiles. Norman held a tin of cookies. Susan held her dignity like it was a fragile ornament. "Adam, sweetheart," she said in a tone that implied nothing had happened. "We'd really love to talk." "Sweetheart." I nearly snorted. We let them in, mostly because shock is a physical force. They sat on our couch like they were hosting us. "We've been thinking," Norman began, as if delivering a quarterly report. "About the envelopes. About the misunderstanding." There it was. The word people use when they don't want to say cruelty. Susan leaned forward. "We truly want to make things right. We want Paula to feel included." My spine tightened. Adam didn't respond. He simply waited, dangerously calm. "We realized," Susan continued, "that we may have acted too quickly. We didn't have enough time to bond with her." Her smile wobbled. "But of course she's part of the future distribution." Translation: "We regret getting caught." "And," Norman added, "we're willing to advance your portion early. A gesture of goodwill." There it was, the bribe wrapped in buttercream. Adam finally spoke. Quiet. Precise. "You want us to withdraw the legal request?" Susan's smile cracked. Norman's jaw twitched. "We just don't think lawyers are necessary," she said. "It would be unpleasant for everyone." Translation: "Stop digging before you find the bodies." Adam looked at them. Really looked. "You're not sorry," he said. "You're scared." Silence fell so hard the room seemed to tilt. "You're not doing this because of Paula," he went on. "You're doing this because you know there's something in that trust you don't want anyone to see." Their faces twitched. Guilt, fear, outrage, all fighting for space. "That's outrageous," Norman snapped. "We've managed that estate responsibly for decades." "Then," Adam said, standing, "you shouldn't mind the lawyer finishing her review." That was it. Politeness shattered. "This is disgusting," Susan hissed. Going after your own parents. You went after my child, Adam said calmly. He opened the door. They left with sputtering insults and wounded pride hanging off them like wet laundry. Adam locked the door, checked it twice, pressed his forehead against the frame. I touched his back. You okay? He exhaled like someone finally understanding the weight he'd carried his entire life. I'm done letting them decide who counts. The lawyer didn't call the next day, or the next. Real investigations take time, the kind of time that stretches nerves like piano wire. Paula slowly uncurled. She played, drew, smiled more. Every night she asked, "Are they coming back?" Every night we told her no. Every night she held that answer like it was a new kind of safety. Meanwhile, emails trickled in from Ms. Daly. A note here, a discrepancy there, then something larger, then something that made my stomach drop. By week 3, she asked us to come in. We sat in her office, Paula in the corner with crayons, Adam with both feet planted like he expected a courtroom ambush, and Ms. Daly slid a folder toward us. You were right to question them, she said. Not just about Paula, about everything. My pulse kicked. The trust wasn't theirs to shape, she continued. And they've been shaping it anyway. She flipped pages. Missing distributions, redirected funds, expenses disguised as maintenance, unearned withdrawals, discrepancies so old they had dust on them. And this, she said, tapping a highlighted section, is where it gets worse. Ms. Daly didn't flip the page dramatically. She just rotated the folder so we could see the figures ourselves. Adam inhaled sharply, because this section wasn't about Paula, or us, or envelopes. It was about money. A lot of money. Ms. Daly tapped again. This, she said carefully, is a ledger of distributions your grandmother intended for all her grandchildren. All? Adam echoed. Yes, she said. Every child of every branch. Equally. She paused. And according to the trust, each distribution was supposed to happen on a set schedule. She slid her pen down the column. Age 18, age 25. Milestones, amounts, dates. Everywhere Adam's name should have appeared, empty, completely empty. My stomach dropped. And, Ms. Daly continued, they weren't just withholding Adam's distributions. She turned another page. Your brother should have received his at 18. Turned another. Your sister as well. Turned another. And these 3, she pointed, belong to the grandchildren from Sean's side. Adam stared. A muscle in his jaw twitched. You're saying, he said slowly, they didn't pay anyone? Not a single one, Ms. Daly replied. For over 20 years. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Where did the money go? Ms. Daly's mouth tightened into something that wasn't quite a smile. That, she said, is the part they are going to hate the most. She tapped the totals column, not the amounts. She covered those with her hand, but Adam saw enough of the digits to go pale. His throat bobbed. That number can't be right, he whispered. It's right, she said, and it's only preliminary. I gripped Adam's arm. And you're telling us, I said carefully, that all of this, and all of it, was supposed to go to her descendants? Yes, Ms. Daly said. Every one of them, Paula included. Silence. Not shocked silence. Not outraged silence. The kind of silence where the ground shifts under your feet and you suddenly understand why someone showed up with a tin of cookies begging for mercy. Ms. Daly folded her hands. This is no longer just about an exclusion, she said. This is a pattern, a long-term breach of fiduciary duty, potentially fraud. They will almost certainly lose their position as trustees once the court sees this. Adam rubbed his face with both hands. Jesus Christ! Ms. Daly's tone softened. I know this is a lot, but we proceed carefully, quietly. We request a full accounting. We document everything. And when this reaches court, she paused. The trust will be corrected, and the beneficiaries, and all of them, will finally get what they should have received years ago. 6 months later, life feels like a house with all the rotten beams finally ripped out. We're still no contact. Paula sleeps easier. Adam breathes easier. And the truth, once buried under decades of manipulation, now sits in the light where it belongs. When the audit finished, the fallout was nuclear. Adam's siblings were the first to call, stunned and furious. For years, every gift Susan and Norman bragged about giving had actually come from the family trust, and they'd quietly pocketed the majority of what each grandchild was supposed to receive. Mandatory distributions were disguised as generosity. Everyone had been shorted, not just Paula. The court's ruling was brutal and clean. The original family trust was dissolved. Individual sub-trusts were created for each grandchild. Adam was named trustee for Paula's sub-trust. The other siblings became trustees for their own children. Then came the accounting. Adam's share, approximately $746,000, now fully paid out. Paula's new trust should have held around $472,000. It had $181,000. The missing money, spent by Susan and Norman. And Paula wasn't the only grandchild whose trust came up short. So the court ordered the only thing fair. Every spare dollar of Susan and Norman's pension is now garnished and divided across all the grandchildren's trusts, including Paula's, until the shortfalls are repaid. They sold their house, downsized to a tiny rental. And every month the family members they mistreated receive what was owed all along. As for us, we're finally free. So what do you think? Did we go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.